That's not a good answer.
To extend on the song "Who's in Charge of your body," I would
Yeah,
like to add a verse: "Who's in charge of your computer?"
I am.
You are.
Uh, but it's you that I can't see, therefore it may be that you've
Oh, okay,
jumped.
yeah, because we've got the black, like the curtains down. Can you see a
Ah,
big black
thank you.
screen?
Yeah, well, I just see nothing like it ain't working. If
Yeah,
that's a
yeah, yeah.
black curtain,
Alright.
then
Oh,
that's
wait, 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 wait,
fine.
wait, 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 wait.
Now I can see.
There we
Now
go.
you.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Sam and Dad show. What do we want to land on here? There we go. That's a pretty
We
good
can
set.
land on.
Good
Let's
morning,
land.
Dad. How you going? Hang on, let me just turn this music off. There we go.
I'm very well, thanks, Sam. How are you?
Yeah, all right. Well, we just did the. I think this is like we already talked as people. So we can now welcome. What's on the docket today?
Well,
Mon père.
uh,
Let's put this over
we've got
here.
a fairly sort of personal to each of us, me, to you, to whoever's watching or listening here on this particular Saturday morning in Eastern Daylight Saving Time in Australia on the 9th of October 2021. And we're here on this particular planet at this particular time via the good graces of a bunch of techno people who melted down metals and made little wires and got electricity happening so that we could invent microchips and all sorts of doodads and not only radars, but things like antennas and aerials and receivers and little flat screen things by which we're interacting now hundreds and hundreds of kilometres apart.
Um, is that the intro?
Yeah, welcome via our fabulousness.
All right. Well, topic one. I think I personally, to give you some live feedback, think that introducing the topics at the top of the show hasn't been successful so far. In that we tend to just meander through them. So let's start with topic number one. What are your priorities? Priorities. Lay it on us, Dad. What are priorities? Why do they matter?
Okay,
What are
but
we cooking in the
we
kitchen?
wait. Let's just roll a general human in 2021 plus out of bed or whatever time of day or night, normally morning for most of us. Let's just imagine that it's early-ish October, might be a Saturday morning, 2021, and you've rolled out of bed this morning. You've gone, this is what I'm going to do next. You've got a bunch of priorities. Now, we know that's to do with your body functions and basically you go to the toilet. That's what happens. We're just bits of biology in time and space. We're just mammals here, transitory on this fabulous planet of ours. But as well as the body functions that we know about, we also have things, needs. We want to eat sometime. Most of us who can like to have a coffee. That's a priority. And then for me, it's been, I'm just finishing off work here in my bush house in southeast Australia up on the steep country. And I'm just finishing off work now inside the house to my great surprise, uh, some of which I laid down in 1975. So I'm going to jump in right here on my own story of priorities and say clearly across the arc of my 50 years of adult life, a key and obvious priority, given where I'm speaking from now, is this bush house of mine. And from its conception to be thermally good, to be ecologically low footprint within the recycle, reuse, it's cheap or free. I'll wait on, I can dig up most of the rock and the mud from within 20 metres of where I'm sitting now. And so that's been a major priority of mine. As well as that, we all have the Maslow's issues of priorities, and I think Maslow should be sainted. And it may touch on another topic called how come Maslow got traction and most of us don't. And the idea of traction is a sort of subplot that we've been dibbling with from time to time. And so my priorities have been love, food, air, water, shelter, happiness, safety, education, social, music. Hey, we love Maslow. Maslow was our favourite man. And we all, if you're not up with Maslow, any listeners out there, just jump in, because he's just gone, this is what we are. It's not about what's the purpose of life, the philosopher's question. It's what are we as humans in time and space? What's going to make it work for us? We don't, by and large, like torture or torment. We do, by and large, like having a good laugh and maybe doing a bit of dancing and music. But we all like safety, and we all like a sense of purpose, right up near the top there, of actualization, of being the best person that you can in the modern babbly talk. And so for most of us, the priority is to live long, happy, healthy, functional, contributing, sharing, love-rich lives.
I wonder how linear this is. Like, the reason I ask is, like, for example, talking with Chloe about how, like, something she's grappling with and trying to shed is this idea of status and outward cultural signifiers as a motivator for, like, work and stuff like that. And for her, it's more like this radical, like, anti-work, like, but I kind of went through the same thing where I realized, like, how much I was doing was to be, like, recognized as, you know, particular level of credibility and whatever, and that actually wasn't particularly useful. So this esteem one, like, this mightn't be accurate. I don't know. I just googled the top one, but, you know, status. Well, I guess esteem. It's just interesting. Like, esteem. Oh, self-esteem. That makes sense. So it's not just. It's just interesting they put status here.
Yeah, it's self-esteem. I think the way I've ever understood. I stumbled across him in the early 70s, starting to do some psychology at Monash Uni, and thought, yeah, well, this has nailed a lot of people's questions without much fuss at all. And I do love a good triangle, a hierarchy of needs.
Well, that's what I mean. It's kind of like, is it like just because he's put it in a triangle, does that mean it's a triangle? Like...
It depends where you're sitting. But most times the more fundamental stuff, the solid, the foundations, the base of the pyramid, in fact, 3D, in fact, through time 4D. So the pyramid, the basic stuff, if you haven't got air within 5 minutes, pretty much you're dead. So having the basic body needs of air, water, food, shelter, safety, they're sitting right down near the bottom. The sense of self-actualization. I personally don't feel any sense of need for esteem from others, although I do get it on occasion across my life since I was little. So that's never been a deal for me. We've got to get back to cultural sheaths if we want to talk about esteem, and go the cultural sheath that you and I, Sam, are part of, says, oh, that's good, little Johnny. Oh, you've done well there. We've come from supportive and contributing cultural sheets that have helped us grow into the adults that we are today. Our childhoods, and all the psychologists go, your early childhood stuff, your childhood stuff. If you had really nasty siblings, your relationship, or they were unsupervised, or the parents were preoccupied with drugs or alcohol or whatever, if you had nasty, uncontrolled siblings that tormented and harassed you, then you're going to probably grow up to look for being tormented more, or to torment others, or to harass others. What we experience in our youth, we tend to go out and look for repeats of and or inflict on others. And so the healing of psychology becomes really important to go, what's the luggage that you carry from a not ideal childhood, one that had bad stuff happen, and then go, you need to unlearn the responses that you had to that. you need to embrace the concept of behavioral psychology. Is it doesn't matter what shit's going on in your head, it's what you do for yourself and in relation to your environment and your own needs meeting. No one owes you a living. Sorry, everybody who thinks that the world owes them a living. It just doesn't. You've got to work for food in your stomach and a roof over your head. There is no free ride. Even the kings of old, they all had to work. Everyone had to work.
Well, except for like people that are beneficiaries of capitalism's ability to build financial structures that they can own and receive the profit from at someone else's labour.
Absolutely. The last 400 or 500 years, that idea of capitalism born of the conquests and the plunderings of the world, and the combination, the deceit combination of science and art and arrogance and God, Christian God, sorry, and an absolutely schmick military sets of machines that were honed on each other through Europe, where all the peoples got born good, and too many of them, and fought for scarce resources and domineering in the feudal system, and the Celts and the whole sorry story of people plundering and cutting each other's throats late at night and early in the morning, that bore up as the British in Australia more than anything, as the British military government establishment. And here we are today with the product of capitalism and the concept of private ownership, which capitalism, of course, is based on.
All right, so I'll give you one article that I wrote, or essay, I guess. It's called "We Created the First Artificial Intelligence, in 1844, and now it's eating the world." So I wrote it on Medium. You should just keep writing blogs on Medium. Like, no one will read them. Who gives a shit? Like, no one reads anything. Everyone's got brain damage, but like, just keep sharing your brain damage with the world on the easiest platform is my advice.
There's a website name.
No one needs a website name. Websites just don't matter. Like,
I love website names.
Yeah, it just doesn't matter. Anyway, that's another conversation. We'll make your website. It's fine. So anyway, the thesis here is that like I start by exploring what intelligence is, as in like emergent intelligence from networks. Don't jump off on any of these yet. I'm going to give you the A points. And then talking about like artificial intelligence in the sense of us creating these emergent networks that then have their own agency and yada yada yada. And then basically what I do is I break, like, my thesis is that the corporation, or the ability to create these legal organizations around essentially capital, essentially meet a lot of those properties of those kind of like complex emergent networks that have like feedback loops that can train these entities to act and make decisions, and then have that feedback loop that is what evolved the neural structure over however long, and its dopamine is money, right? And then the similar thing, like artificial intelligence we're creating, basically these big dumb matrices of networks that we just pump information through and then give it a smack if it gets it right or not, like 1 billion times a second, right? So that's how we do like image recognition, is it shows just essentially like a network of numbers, like neural synapses basically. Well, that's one type. I know it's more than that, blah, 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 whatever. So I would argue that organization, then I was saying to Chloe, like, what if, so corporations are, or capital entities are these organisms, right, that we've created, and there are a set of rules that can like live abstracted from, any one person or whatever. And then those kind of old money families, right? The thing that lives on is the trust, is the financial entity around the people are the operating software, right, for it. And then what if that's sort of like kind of a little bit of a spin on where like the vampire comes from? Is the vampire isn't any one member of that family, but it is this like lurking being of capital from before there was even capitalism, that has its own sort of like intelligence baked into the books and ledgers and whatever of that, like, that's like hidden in the vampire's castle, and it's so yeah, that's my like. Organizations are like intelligent, blunt, dumb, blind beasts. Like I kind of like talk about here, like we can kind of rewrite the code of these things and think about what an organization is and kind of bake the try and make a more competitive organization by changing the structure and code of it to program it to align better with our values, and ideally it'll be able to outcompete the old organization species essentially. That's my little.
Well, I love it. It would be good if you can drill into your great World Wide Web repository and pull up Deep Sea Creature and then their song Vampire Corporations.
Okay, all right, sure.
And share a little bit of that, because it's you've just given the narrative to the song, or is the song's giving you the narrative? Oh, wait a minute, it's the worldview that needs to be out there and shared as plausible. Since the 1400s, the Dutch, as I've written and sung elsewhere, do stuff since the start of trade in the East India, the Dutch East India Company. They had weaponry, they had lots of rogues that they had the muskets, and we can't argue with the musket. I'm just reading James Cook's detailed biography of his epic journey that went to Hawaii, went to Australia's coast, Australia, and the various encounters. And it's spine-chilling, but it's highly detailed, because the Brits, along with their weaponry and so on, they kept fabulous documentation. But Cook opened the instructions from Admiralty after he'd done the transit of Venus, and only then did he go to the possible Great Southern Land, see if it exists or not, and any countries, any islands or land that you come across, claim it on behalf of the Crown. And he did, and they did. And that capitalism that was 200 years old then already, and once one of the lots of the Euro people got the idea of modern capitalism, take what you want for as little effort and as much intimidation as needs be, and amass as much person as you can by whatever means. If it involves slavery, if it involves melting down all of the fabulous gold artwork of the Incas so that you could better fit it all in the holds of your Spanish galleons, then just go for it.
All right, I'm going to hit play on this song, just because it's a good...
Yep.
Hang on. I'll make it so you can hear it.
Big recommendation on this, all you fabulous. Good morning. On the Sam and Dad Show at Plus Friends.
Hang on, this might be really loud. I'll just turn it down a bit. It's alright, hang on. That's pretty groovy. Tony! Share sound. Hang on, okay. Hang on, that's probably pretty loud. Let me turn it down.
Got to start from the beginning.
No. Everyone else heard it, it's fine. They've all heard it from the start.
Oh, okay.
Hang on.
Oh, big bass.
The blood. Yeah, money's the blood. Well, actually, that's the thing. I don't think it's the blood. I think it's the dopamine. I've been thinking about this a lot. I think the blood is. I think people might be the blood. No, people are the neurons. I think the blood might be.
Got no soul.
Shadows, 'cause they live in the darkness, worshipped in dark boardrooms by a million blind eyes. Vampire corporations.
Great. Who's singing?
Oh,
Lisa Baines.
No. Lisa Goodson.
I don't know.
Yes, you do. Good old Mrs.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Money is the blood, the blood, the blood. Money is the blood, the
All right, you heard it first by Deep Sea Creature on Bandcamp. Link in the bio. Well, it won't be because I don't have a bio, but the
Deep Sea Creature.
just
They're
Google
fabulous.
Deep Sea Creature band, Facebook, something or other. Okay, all right, that's a pretty good.
So we've got this idea, the thread for today, this what I've been thinking about, this idea of priorities. And it rolls back generationally for me in this sense. Mum said to me about a year ago, just out of the blue, she said, "Oh, Douglas, you may as well do what you want to do whilst you can still do anything." And I thought, there's a part of my website, see the good future and go for it.
We'll make the website. I'm just telling you the reality
I know
of it.
we will.
What did she say? What did she say? Do what you want.
She said, do what you want to do now while you can still do anything, right? And since I've been here in the bush nearly 3 months now, just waiting to get down to spend time with her, I've been going, well, Mum, you know, the fire went through here, the big black summer year before last. Fire went through the corner here. A lot of black chunks up around John's place. Some of the plumbing got torn out by my friend with the bobcat because it was smouldering, it was burning. Neighbours helped me enormously. I was thousands of kilometres away, and I'm forever grateful. And so I said, Mum, I've got these things to do. And she said, this is like been a week or so, I'm just sort of assessing what needed and jumping in where it was obvious. Hit the ground running. I love it here more than anywhere else on earth. And she said, oh, well, Douglas, because I was going, oh, then I've got to do this and I probably should. She goes, well, Douglas, you've got to prioritise. And I thought, well, yeah. And then I thought, well, what are the priorities? And that just, we know you've got to prioritise, but actually formalising that knowledge and going, well, what am I for me? What am I going to do today? Oh, I'll just do a slurry on the kitchen floor so that when people come up for this wedding, they won't think, what's this ratty place? And make it all nice and crisp and clean and fresh looking for all the wedding people that will flush through here for a week or two. And so became an obsessive priority.
Can I queue up a injection there? Just because I feel like you could easily talk another sentence and then be like, have taken that somewhere else, and then what I'll have said won't make sense anymore. So just on that, I actually have been doing a similar thing where I've been pretty burnt out. Well, not burnt out, but like I have, I do my like I call it creative development, just like concept playing around, do the work in the morning, and I had, I guess, been like maybe spreading it like the tendrils too wide and trying and making too many things a priority when you can only have one priority. It's actually built into the definition. Do you know what I mean? In terms of like what you're like, in terms of, like obviously you can have the way I look at it is you can have one like priority all across like multiple streams of values, right? So like in terms of my work, like it's only really useful to have one like focus, right? And so I realized that I'd been giving everything too much importance in the work that I was doing, and so I actually went through and made I basically took everything that wasn't I'm working on a project, like a creative project, and all the other stuff is cool and it's fun, but this creative project is the priority, right? So I went through this is my like, speaking of priorities, this is my like project management board. So I use this, we use these at work.
I can't see that little screen in the background.
Check it up, there we go. Hang on, how's that?
I could put the glasses on.
No. Well, yeah, if it helps you see, but I'll just make it bigger. There we go.
There we go.
So you know what I mean? Basically, yeah, it's like, it's funny, like I kind of had to do like a digital version of the same thing of like, well, what's my, cement slurry? Because I was like, well, realistically, if I write down everything I'm talking about, how long do I reckon it'll take? Can I actually do all these things? And so I did that yesterday, and I actually felt great about it because basically what I've done is, if you look here, you can see this is like, each one is like a board, like is a project, right? And I had 4 different boards all up in the main zone. And then each of those had all their own little subtasks. And I'm just going to axe the rest of them. They don't matter. They're just fun. They're there. They exist. If I feel like fucking around, I can do one of them. But this, which is a project I'm working on, is this is my focus right now. And I feel a lot better now. Because even like the stream, I was like, I got to buy this, I got to do that. It's like, it doesn't matter. Like, this is it. This is what I'm doing. Everything else is fun. Anyway, yeah. So that's just my little like priority interjections.
Okay, well, just a couple of responses to that is the idea that you've got a tube of time. We're glued on the moving sheet now. We all get that, all of the constellations and the birds flapping by and the COVID, wherever the world's up to there. It's all happening right now. And in that sense, yes, but the sheath of time is you moving along through time as well. And there's only so much. You get it, and then you wake up again. It's tomorrow and tomorrow. And each day, just to unitize time, each day, you can only do so much. And you need to body functions. Most of us need to do housework. Sorry, guys, but you've got to go shopping. Someone scrubs the toilet and your mum ain't there anymore. You've got to do stuff, housework each day as well. Wash your clothes, there. That's all stuff that you've got to do if you want to lead a functional life. So if you go a priority, and it's a choice to some extent, or it's just a consequence of how much damage you did or didn't get, or how functional your parents and your cultural sheath were on and on, the variables is that how you prioritise your I got up this morning is just contingent on where you are, who you are in time, space, but you do have a bunch of priorities, and you can only do so much each day. So later on today, as soon as we do our thing this morning, I'm putting all the right gear in my car, and I'm heading way out deep in the bush to help a fellow friend who's blah, 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 and has a working bee. I choose to do that for 58 reasons, but it means I can't finish off more of my gravel work. I can't finish off doing the stuff that I want to do with sand. I need to climb up on the roof to get it there, and but I choose today to do that. And that freedom, which is a fundamental point of discussion that we should always keep in our heads, that who's in charge of your body, how free are you to do what you want to do in any particular day. The freedom itself is a key priority.
Like a little diagram?
Lovely diagram, that's us. The tube of boundaries, what I call the outer membrane of what you can and can't, or what is socially sanctioned, and that changes, what's allowable by moral code, by law. There are things in place of behavioural psychology. It's not what the shit inside your head, it's what you actually do. What you actually do is contained by who, the when and the where of your birth and time and space. It defines the cultural sheath in time and location you came out into, the kind of projections that are possible for the course of your life.
Well, the way I interpreted this is like the tube is the tube of all physical existence, from a constellation to a bird flying.
Sure.
And then this slice is you in time. And then within that, you've got
the
like
drawing. Put it on the front cover of a big. Oh, wait a minute. Website. No.
You've got your like
that says it all.
Scope of possibility right there.
Great jumping jalophies, because that's my tube, and then you've got your tube, and our tubes are overlapping at the moment on the one and only moving sheet of now. I'm constrained in the tube of my possibilities, the cultural momentum. With me personally, I can only do so much in the next 5 minutes. It has to involve has to involve me getting up from this seat before I can do a whole lot else. I can do a bunch of stuff while sitting in this seat, but I'm anchored in geography.
Well, interesting example of that is like, I've got my priorities, and one of them is that like family and personal connection is critical and needs time. So like I want to do my art and blah blah blah, but I stopped doing it at 11 so I can talk to you and then I can talk to mum, because I would probably rather just do code all day, and not talk to anyone ideally, but then I am not doing that other thing which is a priority, which is maintaining and developing my relationships and stuff like that, and then the code and the art, like that all fits in around what doesn't, like I could then go and do code and art all Saturday and Sunday, but then that would affect my health. So it's kind of like my health and, you know, well-being, because that feeds everything else. Like I can't be a good son, friend, if I'm not well. And part of my wellness is doing my own art and shit like that, because I'm not happy unless I do it. And then, look, I didn't realize I was getting here right on a live stream with my dad, but I actually don't know, like, family and friends versus like professional aspirations and ambitions. I think I kind of made the call last year when mum was needed some help, and I had to like pause work during a tough time to go down, because I was very like, oh, I'll just leave that till this is over and she'll just figure it out. So I think that what it is, I think, is that idealistically, and I think values based, like I do prioritize people and connections and relationships over work. But in terms of practice and reality, like that's only I feel like a value shift I've only made over the past few years, to be honest, because for such a long time, work was my only real source of like identity or like value. I was like, all right, if I get the good job, I'll be the person that like I need to be, you know, valid. And now I'm learning that like that doesn't work actually. It doesn't solve that problem. So, you know, so I kind of like, I manage those three as, and I read this book called The One Thing, and it's really about identifying, you know, in those different channels, what's the thing that really is going to have the most impact, essentially, is the most important to you in that area. So for me, it's like, I figured it out for my professional stuff is creating original fictional stories that are built around the, you know, the tech and the art that I love. And so like, what do you have to do each day? What's the thing that gets you to that? If it's not that, don't do it, basically.
Well, I'm there, and that's that idea of live your best life. And everything you've said raises the question of how self-aware are you? How much do you know that your obsession left uncontrolled by the id, the ego, whatever you want to do, Freudian stuff, but you would just be doing code all day. And the fact that you can, my obsession, of course, is gravel. I'd just be raking until I died. I'd just die of hunger if I let my obsession go.
I nearly pissed my pants the other week because I didn't want to stop, and I knew I had a few more minutes before I had to do the other thing. You know, I had to go grocery shopping, and I was just like, oh my god, I fucking need to go to the toilet. But I knew that once I stopped, I was over for the day, and I was just like, oh my god, am I literally about to like?
I know, it's called obsession. And look, Cook was obsessive, Galileo was obsessive, Newton was obsessive, Einstein. Most people are kind of obsessive in whatever. And if, like you and I, we've had a fair run of freedom and allowed to grow into, and indeed encouraged and supported to grow into who you are, you know, what a blessing that is, what a freedom that is that we are pretty deeply in touch with ourselves, be self-aware, self-honest, self-accepting, and practice that same empathy of others as to who they are and what their truth is, and how much they are self-aware, so that you know who you're dealing with. let alone yourself. So we've had fairly blessed lives in terms of the technological time that we've come into, the fact that we have the freedom to exercise choice over what our priorities are. We're not prisoners of war being told to build this railway through the tropical jungle till you're dead, with very little personal freedom of priorities except to get not beaten by the Japanese or whatever. And so our sense of freedom gives us, our actual freedoms give us the idea to be able to develop and grow to self-actualize, the Maslow stuff. And we're very lucky for that. But the key point that we're heading to is that there's only so much you can do each day. There's only so many hours that you can do each day. So the priorities to family, friends, our own daily world of security of your own little bubble. If you're lucky, you get to sit at home and watch TV. So watch TV in your bubble.
Well, that's the thing is that, like, you know, well, this is it though, is that those can be incredibly powerful, but just wrong, or are they wrong? I was like, oh, well, I've shed the career man brain, or how good is me, I'm like an artist, I'm a creator, I'm committed to, like, I don't know, this mystical spiritual act of building and writing to the global consciousness, even in whatever way I can, in the same way that, like, a memory synapse fires blindly, not knowing whether it's going to become a part of a, you know, I'm there in that, like, cultural psychic zeitgeist, you know, I'm doing that, and I'm like getting up early, and I'm and I'm like optimizing my ability to create ideas and practicing, like, fuck it. And then I was like, what if this is all fucking bullshit too? Like, what if this doesn't matter? In fact, it doesn't. Like, on a spiritual sense, what if I'm trying to, you know, seek meaning once again extrinsically from what I do? I've just rewritten the story behind it. And, well, if this isn't it, then what is? Is there anything?
Look, the Tao, the way of Tao, very old sort of Chinese kind of way of seeing the world. There's two things. The way of the Tao is unknowable. What's the purpose, meaning? It's just beyond us. It's just a silly thing to pretend that we're that smart to even glimpse a possibility of what anything actually means. We're just biological consequences. We're just evolutionary things that happen, time and space and geologic time. And so they go, it's unknowable, and they go, it's all maya, it's all illusion, it's all meaningless, it's all empty, there's nothing, there is nothing, there's the universal consciousness. So be it. And you can spiral back to the 1970s of we are stardust because we are. The concept of meaning, I've never really grappled with why you think that is a thing.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. But then it's like, oh, great, I can finally find peace because I understand that there is no meaning. And then I'm like, well, okay, I'm not at peace though.
What does that mean then?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, well, okay, so finally I've reached, you know, which is like the whole fucking, like, round and round we fucking go, which is fine. And then it's like, and then part of it is like, well, I know though, like, objectively, that when I give this stuff a good red hot crack, that I am having a good time, and I feel like even just intuitively I'm feeding good into the universe, but that. And like, so I listened to a guy who's like kind of like a spiritual, like a religious person, but is also like a big business guy. He's at like LinkedIn or something. He's like, but he's now like the head of like well-being or something at LinkedIn, whatever. I don't know, something like that. So he's kind of like this like business guy, and he's like very like my relationship with God, which I don't talk about a lot, but like that's what I have, but not in a like any structured way, which I think is like at a certain point, anyone's that's spiritual's, you know, like they don't try and put it in one box or whatever. It's just, you know, there's probably more. I feel like I'm part of it, whatever. Is that like my deal is with this guy, basically what he said, to like paraphrase, is that, you know, God expects me to go and give my all and everything to everything I'm doing, but also to completely let it go at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's that tension of like, well, we can kind of tell that if we don't care about things and try, that we're not like that we're not feeding ourselves. Or I don't know what we're not doing. But we can tell it's not enough. But that if we attach ourselves to it, that we're blinding ourselves to whatever's underneath. Not that we need to see it. I know it's one of those like
my stuff around that goes like this: God's the universe, and the universe is God. Like, this microphone in front of my face that I'm speaking into and that people are hearing through. In my world, that's part of God. When I was shoveling sand and stuff around earlier today, all that sand in the wheelbarrow, I'm an animist in the deepest and very real sense. God's the universe is God. Therefore, we're all part of God, but it carries the moral responsibility that if you're self-aware as part of God, because everything is in my world, universe, time, space thing, then there's all these sort of obligations to act in a decent and reasonable way. And the way I translate all of that through is follow the endorphins. If you're not hurting yourself and you're not hurting other people or other stuff, and it makes you feel good, you're doing the right thing. That's my screen and filter through which I judge so much, is that am I helping generate endorphins without hurting, are other people do it? Am I doing it for myself? And so that famous song that yet to have traction called Them Dolphins.
Famous song a bit further down the tube of now.
Not today.
All right, so we're gonna go 5 minutes. We've got 5 minutes left, so I'm going to use the time to do my little power blast of this other concept.
All right.
So it's not metaphysical. Well, everything is, or nothing is. In fact, this gets incredibly metaphysical at the end.
Is this your big change in the global
Yeah. Look, it's a vision that I had on drugs, and then later on was like, maybe I should like explore and question this in a way that is useful. Basically, like the idea is that this is a theory I always have with cryptocurrency, is that it'll incentivize renewables because it uses a lot of energy, right? Right now, Bitcoin uses 0.05% of the global carbon budget for essentially nothing, like relatively to what actual value it brings, apart from like speculative laying the foundation kind of shit, right? But cryptocurrency mining is hyper competitive, and its pure profit is based on the cost of its power. That's it. It's one of the few industries that is so directly correlated between the power cost and the follow-on profit. So this was my theory, basically a really rough sketch, was like as renewables get cheaper than fossil fuels, crypto mining will use renewables because it's cheaper, which will then speed up the feedback loop of investment in renewables, right? Yeah. But then on the flip side is that we are using now 0.5% of our carbon budget for no reason. And will it actually do that?
0.5 or 0.05?
Good. That's a good question. Hang on, I've got it written down here. So this is my mind map of it. I've now made it an essay, but this is where it started. This Miro tool is great. It's like a whiteboard tool. It's 0.5.
It's 0.5%
of the global carbon is
1/200th.
1/200th of the global carbon budget.
You
for
did
what?
Say 0.05.
Yeah.
No, that's fine, but it does matter. 0.5 is like probably all of Sydney's energy. Didn't you tell me years ago it's all of Austria's energy?
Yeah, it's like taken over that, right? But
no.
So that's right now. And this is that kind of like what's left of our fossil fuels bootstrap kind of shit, right? So 0.55. So my thesis was always like, it'll incentivize renewables because it's a more flexible energy buyer. The profit margins are so thin and flexible. So I did a bit of research on it, and what's actually happening is that there's some interesting stuff. Is that, I'll give you the top level points and I'll send you the essay because it's like I'm working on it. I don't like talking about Bitcoin because it makes you sound like a crazy person a little bit. But maybe that's what society needs. So there's like this utopian ideal that it'll drive it, What was really interesting though is the duck belly or the duck curve of renewables, where unless you've got storage, which we're still not there fully with storage yet, or incompletely and with like zero like loss and shit like that, is that crypto mining associated with so the duck curve is you may or may not be familiar. It's basically that dip in like production with renewables, but also that excess of capacity at the top, right? Where you basically lose a lot of that energy when it's, right when the sun's shining and yada, yada, yada. And I know that, you want people to get their washing machines out and all that shit, which is true. Like that'll happen as well. But is that those underutilized renewable assets, which is half the time, basically, like say, like the example they gave was, let's see if I can put it here. There are more than 200 gigawatts of delayed solar and wind capacity in the 3 US grids. 200 gigawatts, right? That's just not getting used, right? And I'm not saying that using it for crypto mining, well, whether that crypto has its utility, like right now, if it doesn't or does add to the carbon budget is the only real question, right? Is that could then be turned into profit, right? And what it does is it tokenizes and turns energy into a financial, a much closer to the metal financial instrument that people can trade and arbitrage and do all that magic numbers shit that we use to like buy a banana in Sydney and have that turn into like a fucking, a Game Pass credit in, Denmark or whatever. And what it would essentially do for renewable energy sources and capture sources is allow them to essentially double their profit before the grid is ready to use all that excess and before their battery stuff came up. So that was basically their continued thesis. My flip side where I've landed on it is that, like, yes, I do think that basically I had this vision when I was like dancing on drugs at a big festival. I was like, oh, this is so beautiful, but it's all powered by like energy and electrics and plastic. And, I was like, how can this beautiful place, this beautiful, like, this temple that's been created out of like technology and human spirit continue, but still, use carbon? And I was like, well, and I was just like Elon Musk, which is like obviously like a sort of analog for, tech, whatever, is just going to plug all those solar energy capture storage directly into crypto, which is financial markets, and the solar energy people are just going to become so much more competitive and have like this other revenue stream basically that they will, that it'll just blast that tipping point of like renewable profitability, and jump us ahead of 10, 20 years or whatever. But then on the flip side, I did a bunch of research and there's like all this dirty coal. They're like building Bitcoin miners into like, fracking, like to like capture like energy, which is then converted into money, which is information. So the title of the article is Energy Becomes Information, essentially. And the thesis of like how we is that through like the ability to like turn direct energy directly into either like meeting our needs or essentially a financial instrument, we'll just do this really interesting thing to like basically I had this idea, how we have the petrodollar, is that we have like the solar dollar, right? And it's like, it's directly, the dollar is what a kilowatt is worth, right? So you're either spending it because it's been converted to a financial instrument, or you're using it for the survival, right? Like meeting those basic needs. So it sort of creates this what'll happen is that like through arbitrage and leveling out is that like, a kilowatt dollar is basically like how much a kilowatt is worth to a person versus spending it to buy a pair of like whatever. So that's the gist of it. I'll send you the article. And then actually, hang on, I'll give you the rest of the gist. Then I was like, well, even if we did take off the blinkers of carbon cost, that doesn't reduce, what we are still doing is increasing our rare earth mineral extraction, fossil fuel turned into plastic, like all those servers, those extra things. So what happens with all that like extra material properties that we have to do to serve this thing? Like, is the only way that we can like solve our carbon problem is by making more plastic? That's kind of shit. And then I was like, well, what if, well, anyway, we're always going to need to make more shit because we love making shit. And we love it being made out of plastic and steel because we love plastic and steel. And if you don't, then show me your fucking house, and I bet it's full of plastic and steel. So how do we then use the rest of that? So I kind of started with this little thing here of like this little like, the earth like bubbling and doubling and like that kind of network, that grid of like energy information. And then yada yada yada. I'm like, well, but all that depends on like our ability to extract and process minerals, basically. So how do we use what's left of our fossil fuels to like get that off planet, basically? And we were talking about that the other day. And then do the sort of like gravity well, where we sort of like that other part of time and space is gravity, right? Is we sort of like weave a thread through the gravity well to get to be able to get up into space to get the minerals that are there, as opposed to on our beautiful garden Gaia biosphere, and also then do the extraction, the manufacturing, do all that in an area that is in our biosphere, basically. And then that way you still have like that like unlimited growth engine that what I realized is that energy just becomes an expression of time across with human ingenuity, essentially. Once you've got this level at that point, and people can just make whatever they want and imagine whatever they want, and it doesn't kill them, because right now, as we make and imagine, it kills us. Like, we're strangling ourselves with our own ingenuity at this point, and we will solve the problem because we have to, and we will. But then I'm like, okay, but if we get into space powered by fucking Bitcoin and Jeff Bezos riding his rockets, and we get all that, but we don't figure out how to deprogram our relationship with growth, then, and there's this AI theory of like this great paperclip, like if you programmed a machine that just all its job was to make paperclips, and it just like basically would just eat the universe, kind of essentially, like you can kind of do the math from there. Like, is that us? And like we're just like sending like fucking probes to the next solar system to mine its energy so we can get more Bitcoin, because like it's that that like intelligent system idea of corporations I was talking about before. What if that's the system that we are. We are form a part of it now. We're part of that like intelligent corporate, well, semi-intelligent, or at least like self-possessing of agency corporate superstructure, and then we like blast that off into space to mine the fucking whole universe for Bitcoin, and the whole fucking universe becomes a Bitcoin miner. So like then there's this other book that I haven't read yet, but I get the gist, like less is more and degrowth, and how you degrowth the economy. And it's like, well, we won't be able to decide these pathways. These are just going to happen because we are in so many senses like the market and human forces are themselves these unknowable systems to a certain degree. And then, someone has a breakthrough, like, whatever. But even that is like not planned. Even the plans that work aren't planned. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not, you can't have a plan that works.
People 500 years ago, by and large, couldn't have conceived of, like the concept, couldn't have conceived of electricity, let alone the idea of batteries. This talk of the Egyptians had things like wires, and that you plug wires into a potato. They didn't have potatoes. They came from the Andes in the 1600s, of course. But our relationship with electricity is new. The concept that rather than burning old dead forests washed down over lots of hundreds of millions of years, whatever, bits of old dinosaur and old sloppy old forests, burning them versus capture and storage is relatively new, and we've had hydroelectricity since fairly broadly since the 1920s, but that's only 100 years. We've had any electricity grid distribution for only 150 years. So it's early days for all things electric, let alone all things crypto, as it were. And we talked briefly last time about the idea of cryptocurrency and how much energy it uses. And indeed, the cryptocurrency is, in my perception, my little internal visionary space, is that it's like keeping little balls held up in the air. Oh, I'm worth this much, I'm worth this much, and it's using 1/200th of all of our energy use to keep those little balls up in the, I own them, they're mine, no one else can, and they're untraceable and all the rest of it. But my view is that it's a bit like the old bell before the transistor came along. It's a bit like the old beta, and then all the different kind of videos that were on tape before the disc came along, the CD, which is before the solid state stuff came along, before the streaming came, before the Spotify came, and all that's just in my lifetime. And so where this will go in terms of tailoring what we use electricity for, the demand side management. And I did a master's in the science honours on stuff to do with domestic energy use towards sustainable household energy use. So I stuck my head in this with the local electricity authorities for quite a few years up Townsville Way. And those curves that you're talking about, the mismatch is that we get out of bed by and large in the mornings. We've got a morning peak domestic, but particularly the evening peak, we all get home and turn on all our electrics, wham bam, and that's the evening peak. And the electricity authority are obliged to meet that peak. And so the more they can reduce that peak, demand side management off peak, very common noise, but it's to get some of the heavy lifting, heating the water, running the pool pumps, to get them out of that evening peak, because they've got to build another $1 billion coal-powered fire station. There's that peak with more people and more air conditioners and all the other junk that we turn on in the evenings. And so the idea of the solar day going up in the middle and down, the peaks don't match. And so if we, exactly what you're saying, if we can do that cryptocurrency thing so that there's incentive for that middle of the day, the solar day peak of energy in free. Once you've got the stuff set up, it's free. It just comes out of the sky from the sun. It's fabulous. And if cryptocurrency balls in the air can go all across the planet, because it's a planetary thing, those balls can be kept in the air with the solar day each day as the sun and the earth spins and da-da-da. And that can be driving the cryptocurrency balls in the air through more storage, capturing that solar peak each day around the world. Then we're all laughing.
Yeah, and that's, that was kind of my theory, is that there's that assumption about it driving it, but then as I looked into it more, I was like, oh, actually there's some specific utilities apart from just market forces that I think that for example, a really smart energy capture buyer, seller using these kind of financial instruments could then create more granular relationships between, individual users, their own capture, and two-way systems, because all of a sudden all the energy is tokenized. So you can be like, oh, cool, well, we'll buy a little bit of that back because we know we can sell a little bit of these tokens to, China, because right now they're da-da-da-da. It just creates this really nuanced, and it kind of plugs in pretty well with the smart grid. But I'm just making a lot of this stuff up. As I was typing, I was smart, and I was wait, where did I read this? And I was oh, actually it doesn't exist. I'm just assuming that it'll exist. But
well, someone's got to make it up, my darling son.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be me though. I don't know enough about...
Well, you just said you're making it up because, that's right, you are.
Well, assuming it exists and then finding out it doesn't. It probably does. Anyway, it's... I to be honest, I feel like I've had a bit of a, I feel like my next thing, which is still a while away, years away, but I am starting to lay the groundwork for is something to do around energy and robotics, hardware, that ultimate expression of human ingenuity and refining that essentially energy from the sun channeled through consciousness into whatever we wish. Something there,
well,
do you know what I mean?
I think that's where we're going, and I think you've just this morning live, you've seen it first here on Sam and Dad's show. I think you've just articulated the relationship between solar and wind, our ingenuity in making up new storage stuff. Probably is you're implying diversified. There are a lot of little communities across Victoria and other places across the planet now that are going, we'll have our own little mini grid. We'll have our own little solar stuff on all our roofs. We'll have our own little battery storages here, there, and everywhere else. And we'll have a local mini grid with our own storage. And we'll link it up to the big network grid. And I'm a big fan of the big network grid for this reason. You can distribute so that when there's a lot of sun here, you can pump your storage right up. When there's not a lot of sun, good-o, or you can export it or keep those cryptocurrency balls in the air and be paid for it. So the link between dough, realisation of your material and services stuff, means exchange, dough, and the sun and storage and cryptocurrency, you've nailed it, Sam.
That's what I reckon. And so I wrote this essay. I'll show you. I'll send it to you after this. I think that's the end of the call, because I was just like, I should write this down basically because I was
Well,
like,
you could put it up on screen so that
yeah, there you can see
have
it now.
some portal that people can later on click to direct.
Yeah. Well, no one's
Oh, I
watching.
don't know. If you had a website,
No one fucking is gonna go to my website. Like, people just tune me out online. I don't care anymore. I'm still gonna do it because I'm obsessed. So yeah, so I wrote an essay about it. That's because I was just like, this is pretty like, I think I'm right. And there's been a ton of stuff like that where it's like turned out like not exactly right, but I'm like, and also like help me flesh out my thoughts. So that's energy becomes information, and then because that's the thing, right? It's like because I basically had this like other epiphany when I was just looking at a giant city, basically a picture of, and I was just like, people love financial markets. Like, do you know what I mean? That's the other side of it. It's like we just love trading and saying one thing means another, and you can have 6 of this. Like we've been doing it forever. Like before capitalism, whatever. Like 3 fucking shells means the village
Oh,
chiefs,
yeah, no,
whatever.
I'm
Like
with
we
you
just love
there.
that shit. That's one of our tools. There must be this part of our brain that likes abstracting and creating
transactional
markets.
analysis. We're wired for it. All animals are. All birds, all insects, everything does transactional analysis all day long.
So it's just like make energy and energy capture a financial instrument, and all that like power of the financial markets we have that we see as powerful gets plugged into like and renewable energy. And so I was like, well then energy becomes information, right? Because that's what money is. And then as I was doing it, I was all like, well, what does the information mean? I think I wrote it down here somewhere. Energy becomes information becomes, hang, so I was like, where is it? Whatever. Basically, like energy becomes, it just becomes, well, like I said, like the information is time over human ingenuity at that point. Do you know what I mean? That's the data point that energy is. Kilowatt is human capability over time. Or could be measured, it's kind of that like, 1 equals the other kind of thing. Once we have like a seamless capture, and by human ingenuity, I mean like whatever we are, whatever this is, this whole business.
Oh, look, it's this. You've heard me talk, and I've written again in Medium. I've written of our human prowess and our capacity, particularly in COVID, to rejig our value of money, our construct, because money is a human construct. All creatures do transactional analysis. We species have abstracted that concept, so it's not just the mateship dance. It's the promise of the mateship dance that we can do a transactional analysis. We've abstracted the concept of exchange and created a means of exchange, an abstract human construct. Money, one of our probably top 10 inventions, along with zero, a few other things. And so with that construct, we can say that a kilowatt is worth, there are kilowatt dollars, because we get to make up what the hell we call money anyway. And the idea of the material dollars and the current global financial system with its different currencies and a bit secretive in China, a bit controlled, and free markets will not really, and the fact that in the 1960s, 1970s, all international money transfers, you had to wait overnight until stuff happened. And when in the 1970s, magically, and for the first time ever, tens of billions of dollars, way back then when a dollar was a dollar, tens of billions of dollars could transfer internationally every second, and did, that you've got this explosion that made Facebook and Elon Musk and all of the other amazing funneling little bits of money into one big bag.
So
I've got to get on and do other things.
Yeah, I think that's a wrap. Love you, Dad. Thanks for the my link in the genetic and global chain, and your little slice of your current tube of capability within the tube of time, as we are both flattened against the moving sheet of now, or bisected by it, or
well, we're glued. My lingo
glued to
is
it.
glued on the moving sheet of now.
Glued on the moving sheet of now. All right.
That's all of us. Only ever.
Here we go. Got a little.
Love the graphics. The graphics on the front cover of the.
Of the what? Of the website. Look, well, let's talk about that later. But the thing is that, like, don't wait till you've got the website to do the things.
I got to get to Furniture Gully, and then I've got to do
Yeah,
the
but
website.
like, you know, it's like oh, I'll get the, I don't know, I can't think of a building analogy, but
I'm
it's
going
like,
to keep making paper clips, pal.
yeah. Well, that's like churn them out. But you know, write the blogs, make the videos. Like, it doesn't matter where they go because it's the craft and the practice. The website is like 0.01% of it. It's the craft and the practice of, you know, like
I know
publishing
that.
online.
I still am writing. I'm just having a break from public writing. I think
Yeah, I get that.
I think I've got 4 articles, whatever, up on Medium. One is that full value money, the idea of during COVID we can rejig. Another one is to do with the sustainability choices that we make, that this idea of priorities. Do we want a breathable planet for all of the remnant creatures beside humans 200 years from now? There's about that concept of code of conduct by values, principles, and process. I've got a lot of science papers through JCU website on all of those sorts of things to do with the nuts and bolts of sustainability. I will write some more. I'm just busy doing plumbing and floor slurries and just loving the gravel work.
Yeah, well, the thing is, it's about striking a balance, one way and the other. You know, you got to do both. Well, you don't have to. You don't have to do anything.
Well, you can do a segment of gravel work, and then you can do a segment of sit-down work. I'm not good at sitting down most of the time.
Yeah, well, you should get a stand-up desk. I'm not sitting down. Look,
No. Well, no, pass.
it's fucking great. I love it.
I've tried it.
All right. Anyway, show's over. Thanks everybody. Have a good something or other. A good awareness of your current position in the moving sheet of now.